Hello, everybody. Before you start watching our review of George Bernard Shaw's Caesar and Cleopatra, we wanted to acknowledge the passing of Christopher Plummer, who passed away on February the 5th, 2021. We want to acknowledge that Mr. Plummer had a tremendous several decades of work, spanning 7 in total. He lit up both the stage and screen and tackled many iconic roles, from Captain Von Trapp in The Sound of Music to Lear in King Lear, to John Barrymore in Barrymore, to Prospero in The Tempest. For his amazing body of work, he received many well-earned accolades, including being the only Canadian actor to receive the Triple Crown in acting, meaning he won an Academy Award, an Emmy Award, and a Tony Award for his many performances. And at the age of 82, he made history as the oldest person to win the acting award at the Academy Awards for his best supporting role as Hal Fields in The Beginners. But more than anything, beyond the awards and prestigious roles, Mr. Plummer, as many people on this sad day have attested, he was a very giving scene partner and was a tremendous teacher of the craft. Also, Mr. Plummer truly exemplified, more than anything, what it is to be a Canadian through his kind and giving nature. Though he may no longer grace our stages, his work and his legacy live on in the hearts and minds of those who are touched by his work, especially us here at Cup of Hemlock. May you rest in peace, Mr. Christopher Plummer.
We at Cup of Hemlock want to thank and honor the legacy that Christopher Plummer left behind. What he stood for, what he represented on the stage, is the reason why Cup of Hemlock does and continues to do what it does. So thank you. Our condolences.
Yes. Now, without further ado, please enjoy our review of the 2008 Stratford Festival production of Caesar and Cleopatra, starring Christopher Plummer as Julius Caesar. Thank you. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Cup Reviews, brought to you by Cup of Hemlock Theatre. Yes, I am your host and marketing manager, Mackenzie, and tonight we are coming to you on a mixed melancholy note, as we are covering the production of Caesar and Cleopatra by George Bernard Shaw, brought to us by Stratford from the 2008 production, and it was directed by Des McAnuff and stars the most recently passed Christopher Plummer and Nikki M. James as Cleopatra. Yes, as of this recording, Christopher Plummer actually passed away today. So our thoughts go out to him and his family during what I'm sure is a very difficult time. But tonight we are here to honor him and his work by talking about this very interesting Shaw play that was done by Stratford, of all places. I know, right? So we're going to be talking about that. And to do that, we've actually done a bit of a mini Man of Destiny reunion. That's right. We've assembled some of the cast, some of the crew of our Man of Destiny polished reading to revisit another bit of Shaw's canon. So first off, we have Mr. Edmund Clark, who played Napoleon in Man of Destiny, and he is joining us tonight. Ed, how are you?
I'm doing well. So happy to be back. And yes, condolences to Plummer and his family.
Yes.
Yeah.
What's in your cup?
Happy to be back here.
Yeah, we're so happy to have you back.
Yeah, so my cup is kind of special in terms of I was like, what's a nice leader look? So I picked my Obama mug, and
yes, we can.
Yes, we can. And I've got some water in here.
Love that. We also have joining us Ms. Tanisha Sinclair, and she played Lady in Man of Destiny. So welcome back, Tanisha. The last time you were on with us, I believe it was when we did Othello, if I remember correctly. So a little while ago, but it's so great to have you back with us. How are you? What's in your cup?
I'm doing great, and yes, it's great to be back. It's been a while, and I'm loving this reunion vibes. It's awesome. I don't have a cup, but I have a bottle of
Ooh.
oh, you can't even
Is your bottle green?
My bottle is green, so that's what happened there. But I do have some like beautiful headpieces.
Yeah,
that's my moon, and this is my stars for Egypt. You know.
Okay, get it.
Love that, your ensemble. Perfect. I love it. Plus also your background, very fitting with Sphinx. Yes. Wonderful. And last but most certainly not least, it is my co-producer of All Things the Cup, our resident dramaturg and literary manager, and also the dramaturg for Man of Destiny.
Yeah,
Mr. Ryan Borochovitz.
I was technically involved in that production. I did get a dramaturgy credit for it.
Yes.
Yeah, Alex Osborne, who played the lieutenant, sends his regards that he was not able to join this cast reunion.
Yes.
As does
William,
William Bartley, the director of the production. So hey, I was also kind of involved, lurking from the shadows. If you ever wondered why there wasn't that much stage direction in the script you were using, somebody had to cut all of that out of there because GBS loved him some good stage direction. So
That he did. So what's in your cup, Ryan? And what is your ensemble tonight?
I'm wearing a flannel shirt, very Egyptian. And I don't know what to tell you. I have my University of Toronto mug filled with orange pico tea. So that's what I got here.
Very nice.
I think oranges may have traveled through Egypt at some point.
It is in fact thematic.
There you
Very
go.
intentional on my part.
Yes. And yeah, tonight I'm drinking from my official The Cup of Hemlock cup.
Yes.
And let me spin that around. There we go. As I'm drinking from this, I have my Earl Grey, and in honor of the Romans, I'm wearing my red, as I see Ed is. And I'm also wearing black in honor of the passing of the great Mr. Plummer.
And you were also in Man of Destiny.
I was, yes. I played Lieutenant.
Yeah. Did I accidentally just say that Alex played the Lieutenant?
Yes, Alex was not Lieutenant.
He was Giuseppe.
Yes, he was Giuseppe.
I read the script.
How could you forget his amazing?
Yeah, no, everyone was amazing. That was such a great show.
Yeah. It was a great show. One of our most watched videos, actually.
That's awesome to hear.
Yeah.
So to the handful of you out there, thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
You're dining with the stars tonight.
Right. And on top of that, I'm joining from the festival stage virtually.
We've each got our themes going.
Wow.
You, the Stratford stage, Tanisha, Egypt, me, the Roman chamber.
And my computer doesn't know how to do
that's okay. You're in the library that's burning.
Yes, I am in the burning library of Alexandria.
Yeah.
Which was just a distraction to get to the lighthouse.
Exactly. All right. Well, now that the board is set, why don't we dive into this play? So first off, we're going to talk about Mr. Plummer, and we're all going to give our thoughts on what we thought about his portrayal of Caesar. So Ed, as your background is Roman, give us the lowdown. What did you think about Mr. Plummer's portrayal of this a very iconic historical figure?
Let it breathe. Just speechless. It was such effort with ease, or ease without effort. Like, however you want to call it. He graced that stage. Like, oh my God, it was amazing. It was amazing to listen to. That opening monologue in the play, I still replay it now. I was listening to it right before we started recording. I was listening to it, just seeing the imagination that he was weaving with his words. It was awe-inspiring. As Caesar, he was amazing. So I have nothing but praise for his performance.
Tanisha, what are your thoughts?
Ease is definitely one of my notes that I wrote down, and also, like, just as an actor, I could tell that he was someone who, like, this is what he wanted to do. You know what I mean? Like, he is a legend, and he came to the Stratford Festival and is like, I'm gonna do Caesar, and I'm gonna just run with it. Like, I love the amount of clarity he has in all of his choices, his thoughts, his switches. Just so clear. The text he handles so beautifully. It was just incredible to watch. As an actor, as a spectator, I was blown away in so many different ways. Sorry, I want to make sure I like get everything that I wrote down about him.
Yeah.
Because he was just so incredible. He surprised me. That was another thing. Like, there are moments where actors can surprise you with the choices that they make, and he's one of them. And that's, to me, always a sign of someone who like really revels in the craft, and shows it off like with pride. Yeah.
He was definitely a symbol on that stage. It wasn't human. Like, it just wasn't human. Julius Caesar, right? And a quote that was told to me, an ancient Roman quote, was, "We are beasts with the potential to be human." And that opening monologue where he speaks about how he's not a man at all, he's part brute, part woman, part God, right? I was like, he was the poetry that he was able to bring into fruition on the stage was like, I just didn't see a man. I just saw a symbol of wisdom and leadership, and right. So
yeah, absolutely. Ryan?
Well, to kind of jump right off of that, I would even add that he is both symbol and man in like many ways. Like, I think, he feels like this huge paragon, just towering figure just because of the gravitas that he brings to every performance. But he also does bring the humanity in the type of role like this that really could just be reduced to a symbol in a way.
Yeah.
And something that I truly admire about like every performance of his, but especially in this one that shines through, is just how much fun it seems like he's having. That like he's been acting for decades and decades and still seems to be enjoying it so much, and just bringing that like almost childlike energy to such a like elderly figure that he's playing here.
They make note of it in the play, the childness of Caesar, but you're absolutely right. There's this light in his eye that just shows how much fun he is having on that stage.
He's just such a delight for him to just roll up into Egypt and just take whatever he wants. And but that's actually, like, I know I say that kind of glibly, but that's sort of like and we talked about this a bit when we did his Tempest a little while back. He has a way of just being so charming in characters of questionable likability, we could say, like Prospero, for example, who, he is this wise old sage, but he is also the colonizer of this island. And I think we see the same thing here with, should we be enjoying Caesar as much as we do? And it's so easy to love Christopher Plummer, but there is this kind of real menacing subtext to that of, well, this is how he was able to come see and conquer, so to speak, because he's just such a charismatic cult of personality in a way. And I think no other actor could have really brought every bit of dimension to that like he could, or very few at least.
He really brought out that one story of Julius Caesar where he's captured by pirates at a very young age, and they try to bargain him off. And he says, "For that price? Oh, come on, you can do better," right? And he just charms the pirates, the people that had him in, who had him in captured.
Yes.
Really? That much?
Yeah. Well, first off, Mr. Plummer, you were fantastic. I mean, you are a true Canadian treasure who graced our stages and screen for 7 decades, and your body of work, fantastic. So this was just another feather in your already very full cap of beautiful plumes. He absolutely found the humanity and humor that Shaw particularly brought to the Caesar, for sure. However, I do
no.
He died this morning. Mac, how could you monster?
No, Plummer was all about open honesty. Like, there's the great story during the Creative Concepts where he thought he should enter the first scene from upstage from behind the Sphinx, And Des McAnuff thought that he should enter from the Vom.
Mhm.
And Des, honoring Christopher Plummer, said, one of the previews, try it out your way. Tell me what you think afterwards. And after the performance, Mr. Plummer went, nope, Des, you're right. I should be much more not so pronounced in that first moment. I should come from the Vom. So Mr. Plummer was all about open honesty, open critique. He was never one that liked to blow smoke for the sake of blowing smoke. So that being said, yes, yeah. So that being said, while I love him, he was a little too old for this role. He was 78 years old when he did this part, and Caesar is supposed to be 55 at the most. He's supposed to be between the ages of 50 and 55. And it's that because he was so much older, his Caesar came across less like a conqueror and less like a general and more like the kind, wise grandfather advisor, which, and the fact that he's sailing off at the end to go do some more conquering, and the fact that he is this great person who's going into all these battles throughout the play, and yet you're talking about his, like, you literally have him sitting in the chair in the one scene with Nikki M. James kissing him on the head, treating him like a grandfather. I was like, he just feels too old in this part. And on top of that, this production, because of the age difference between Nikki M. James, who was, I believe, in her mid-20s when she did this role, and you have Plummer in his 70s, you automatically are unable to attack the one aspect of this relationship, of the Caesar-Cleopatra relationship, which is there was a sexual, lustful component to what these two did to each other. Like, Caesar-Cleopatra are supposed to have a child together, and that's supposed to play into the story later. And yet, because of this big age difference, I respect Des McAnuff for not going this direction, because it would have come across as really Hugh Hefner and creepy as hell. But at the same time, like, that's part of their game with each other. Like, the fact, we're going to get more into this in the direction, because I think this more falls on Des McAnuff as a director and less on Christopher Plummer, who said, I want to do this role. He did the role. He did a very good job within the role. However, he was still too old. Like, they're like a lot of the time, Caesar Cleopatra's relationship, because of the age difference, came across more as parent-child, and that never really progressed throughout the piece. They were always kind of, Cleopatra acts out, or she squeals, or she's being very young, very kind of childlike, and you have Caesar as the older grandfather going, what do you think, Cleopatra? Are you a ruler yet? And it's like, Cleopatra and Caesar were both way smarter than that. Like, these two are basically playing a chess game with each other throughout the entire piece. They're not like Cleopatra was way smarter than what was given to her in this production. And because of their dynamic, like, it was great seeing this very elder statesman coaching this very young actress who unfortunately was cast as Juliet this season and did not get good reviews from the critics that year. So she was already in a very vulnerable spot. She also was a last-minute replacement for Cleopatra. There was another actress apparently who was supposed to play Cleopatra, and then, like, early on in the season, like, she'd already opened Juliet, and they were in rehearsal for, or Brett's going to rehearsal for C and C here, and they called her and saying, "Can you take on this part?" So she was a very last-minute replacement. So the fact that you do have this other statesman who's very, and in fact, he always insisted on the final bout being the two of them. Like, he was this wonderful guardian, kind of a mentor figure, but at the same time, that's not really what Caesar and Cleopatra are. They're two very smart people dueling it out on this chessboard for control of Egypt and for Alexandria. And because of the age difference, and because of the way it was directed, and because of Christopher Plummer's age, it came across more as Merlin, King Arthur versus General and Queen duking it out with each other on stage.
So Ed and I have been making a lot of the same
I know,
faces.
I know,
I'll let him go first.
No, I was just about to let you go first.
Oh, you're too kind.
Ryan, is this gonna be like you and I with Mozart again? Are we going down another debate rabbit hole here?
Well, like, I am glad that you prefaced all this thought with just, like, what a gem Christopher Plummer was to work with, and how all of his peers and collaborators loved him so much.
Yes.
Like, speaking of Amadeus, like, F. Murray Abraham doesn't have the best reputation with that, and is often a bit of a diva on set. So, like, Not that he was in the production we watched, but still, just that always comes to mind, like, as this type of contrast. I have to disagree with, like, this play, both as Shaw wrote it and certainly this production, does not sexualize the relationship between Caesar and Cleopatra. And
I think it's there. I think within the text you can play that.
Hold on, Mac. Ryan, you finish. you let this man speak.
I'm not saying you can't play it, but to me, it feels like your critique is coming from a place of what happened in history versus what is the play we're working with here. And this play, I have it here, you can read it. It's very similar to the direction of this production, and it doesn't feel like a sexual relationship. And just because Caesar himself might have been 55 like at the time, or even younger, it's still like, and he might have been well within his physical prime to continue conquering. The play makes a big deal about how old he is and how much older than her she is. That is a big frequent topic of conversation. So I am not, I keep in mind she's supposed to be 16, so I'm glad that we don't have a literal child on stage playing her. So to adjust the inflation of her age, his kind of has to be scaled up in turn, maybe not equally, but I kind of see this as a play about near the grave, old, past his prime Caesar, who's still very much sharp within his wits, but doesn't quite have it. He's not the Mark Antony that she's so in love with, that she pictures as the big round arms, as she frequently refers to. As big round arms. And who she'll later fall in love with in what I personally think is a better play, but we'll come back to that. But yeah, like this, as much as, directorially you can do anything with it and you can make it sexual if you really do want to reflect that actual history that you seem so attached to, Mac. But
it don't still
come
off creepy. No, I was just gonna say, at the end of your point, it would still come off creepy because of the way it's written. Because he asks her, because he, in the text, he refers to oh, you're not a queen. Oh, Caesar would eat you up. All that, I have to teach you. If she was like, oh yeah, teach me, it would be so creepy.
But that's the point, though. That's the point, that Cleopatra's smart enough to play to that side of Caesar.
And I
Caesar
totally
would
get that.
do this.
However, dude, 78, and the thing
hence
is,
why he was too old. And because he was too old, you lost that element.
Element lost, other things gained. It was still good. We'll talk about how good I guess it was as a production later. I'll get into that later. But I also feel like, oh man, did my train of thought just crash? No, I had a point.
Oh, no. To jump.
My point was that it was just that people play Hamlet who should have no business playing Hamlet. He's a young person, and old man, and people will clap and go see it time after time. So a legend as this man is, wanting to come in and just be like, I'm gonna do this role and knock it out the park. I'm here for it. Take the direction where it needs to go.
Yeah, I mean, that's
for me,
exactly
Mac,
what he wants to do.
It seems like you need to take this up with Shaw as opposed to Plummer. Because
I have no problem with Plummer. Plummer did a great job within the role, but it was a bad choice as a director because you cut yourself short on a lot of other areas you could go with this text. You fell into the trap of, because of the age difference of these actors, you had very few avenues to play within that scene. Because, Nisha, you're right. If they had chosen to go a bit more sexual, it would have come across as Hugh Hefner creepy. But if you had somebody a little bit more age appropriate and had evened it out a bit.
Even if they did have someone more age appropriate, I think this play is better non-sexual. I do think that it's about a paternalistic relationship here. She is quite literally in her salad days when she is green with judgment right here and now. It's what's referred to in Shakespeare's play, but not actually seen because she's already in her prime as the best ruler possible by that point.
And it's where did she learn all of that? By the end of it, it's so obvious, it's in the text, but she absorbed everything that he taught to her. So yes, if they're in real life, there was a sexual thing, that happened. But there was also I guess more important thing was that she learned all of his tricks, and then
Yes, absolutely.
And the reason I
got to
bring
use
up
them.
the reason I bring up Shaw is because, just like what Ryan said and Tanisha touched upon, is that it's in the text. Like that's not ad lib. That age, when Caesar gets flustered at every time somebody brings up his age, I'm much younger. Even in the beginning scene, he's dressed as an Odinic wanderer, right? He's supposed to be this symbol of wisdom, which is usually associated with old age. And even at the end, McAnuff reminds us with that kiss he gives her on her forehead that this isn't. I think they would have done whatever they wanted to bring out from this performance. I think they would have done it an injustice if they had put some sort of sexualization in the piece, because it was just wonderful to watch. Psychology aside, Cleopatra learned to be wise, and you see that in the second half of the play when she starts to speak to her handmaids about what she could learn from them and what she's been learning from Caesar after spending 6 months with him. So,
and what I noticed too is like there wasn't no sexual moment. Like I remember he, the great actor he was just put a slight. There's a moment where he says, "Well, in your eyes, oh, my brain, like it's gone. I have no thoughts because I'm looking in your eyes." And like that is it's cutesy, like because it's endearing because he's old. You're like, "Aw," like. You're still enamored with women. They can still kind of sweep you away, but it wasn't creepy. So it was like a smart, in my mind, way to play it as an actor to kind of like just so ever so subtly add that element. Like I'm still a man. I still find you attractive.
Well, yeah, and I mean, on top of that, like he has all these pet names for her, like kitten and things like that, and there is that element of seduction that she plays, and we're gonna get more into that with the direction, because it seems as McAnuff hedged towards some stuff like that, but then he never went far enough, and he kind of just landed in a muddy middle part of that directorial. So we're gonna get more into that, but like Christopher Plummer within the role of Caesar, like fantastic. Like he was wonderful in the role. I just feel
you wanted it to be younger.
I think this role needs to be played a little bit younger. You wanted
the documentary.
No, I don't want a documentary, but like Game of Thrones, for example, they aged up a lot of their characters for the sake of the fact they knew that these characters would have to do some sexual things, and we're like Emilia Clarke's character in the book is supposed to be like 14 years old, and Emilia Clarke was 19, so they aged her up because first off, you can't do a lot of things George R. R. Martin needed with a 14-year-old. But on top of that, like Daenerys is very much like Cleopatra. Like she uses her sexuality throughout the show to manipulate Khal Drogo, Dario Naharis. There's a lot of people. Jon Snow.
Like I know we can't turn this into a Game of Thrones debate, but I would push back against that idea too. That certainly she uses it at the beginning until she has dragons of her own, then she doesn't have to pull that anymore. And I think Cleopatra's very similar in that way.
Except she has cats and not dragons.
Yeah.
Yes.
I've never seen Game of Thrones, so like
yeah. Either way, but I mean, like overall, Mr. Plummer. Mr. Plummer, you were great. We're going to get more into this production and what this choice of having Plummer in the role kind of trickled down into other aspects. So we will get into that further.
Before we leave this, just for a moment though, because Mac, you said something a moment ago about Plummer came to Des and said, "I want to play Caesar." Like, were you just kind of like writing fan fiction in your head, or do you know for a fact that it was actually at Plummer's suggestion that this play was chosen? It was at his suggestion.
It was in the Creative Concepts interview they did. And they repeatedly said that it was because Plummer had left the festival after 2002, after he had played Lear. So this was his return to the festival for a few years, where he did this, and then he did Tempest and Barrymore in his one-man show. So this was kind of his return, and he came to Des McAnuff and Tincha Molino in Mardu Meriden, because this was the one season where there were 3 artistic directors.
Triumvirate.
Yes, and said, "I want to do this." And Des was like, "Sure, I'll do that, and I'll direct you in it. No problem." So once again, like it was an actor who clearly wanted to play this role, and this was his opportunity, because at the age of 78, how much more time do you got to play this role? I mean, the fact that there's that one moment where he jumps off the stage into the water was such a random moment where I was like, that's the Caesar we needed throughout this piece. This limber, still spry, still someone who can go into battle and I can believe will fight his heart out and kill you.
But Mac,
at the same time, he's old enough to be a tactician behind the scenes.
What does it say? What does it say to see this older man, this elder, spry and limber, right? Like it's all there. It's all there. The play is answering all of your concerns. When Cleopatra says, "You're the great baby," right? Towards the end, you're the great baby. Yet you have it all figured out, right? Oh, this was a good performance. Oh my god!
Yeah,
I never said it wasn't a good performance. We're not disagreeing on
I
know.
We're
disagreeing on whether or not it was right for him to play at this moment in his life.
I'm not
That's
saying
what
you don't think it's a good performance.
Which we now know was in fact his decision. So you are taking fault with him personally for wanting that.
I don't fault him as an actor because this is a great role that you want to play. I felt more Des McAnuff for going, maybe you should play Rufio. Like a role that's
because the whole point is to get the people coming in to see.
He's the headliner. Of course, he's going to play the lead.
He can.
Watch Christopher Plummer
most certainly,
play Rufio.
Well, I think he would make a great Rufio. Because once again, he's
he would make a great anything. That's not in question. But you want to sell tickets. No one's gonna pay for the headline star to be the main character's friend.
Well, Christopher Plummer was an actor who throughout history had shown he was willing to kind of take on the supporting role. To that was still good. I mean, even Brian Dennehy, who took on the role of Sir Toby Belch in Twelfth Night, took on a supporting role because he wanted to play the part. So
to Mac's point, if we had watched Antony and Cleopatra, Julius Caesar. We had watched Julius Caesar.
Mm-hmm.
I would agree. Maybe he needs to be a bit younger.
Actually, I would say Plummer as Julius Caesar.
You two just can't get along about anything.
Well, no, but I mean, Caesar, because he's supposed to be in his 60s by the time you get to Julius Caesar. So you have Plummer in his 70s. That actually fits, because he's got him backdrop. He's weary.
How long
he's
did
tired.
Julius Caesar live for?
He lived to be in his mid 60s.
Which is another thing I wanted to question because it's how many centuries ago? How long do people live?
He lived to be a long time. And that's the thing. He made himself he leaves Egypt and then travels all the way back to Rome, fighting his way back, and even he brings an army to Rome, and that's the big problem is that he marches an army into Rome when you never should have. He drowned a bunch of people in a river at one point. He did a whole bunch of horrible things. Caesar was not a good guy.
One might say he crossed the Rubicon.
There you go, Ryan. Well said. But that's the thing was when he leaves on that boat, I should still be believing you're not going off to die like Gandalf at the end of Lord of the Rings. You're going off to go fight your way across Egypt and Rome.
He's going
to
home.
He's going
to the undying lands, the grave.
Yeah, that's what it feels like at the end. Gandalf kisses Frodo.
Because at the end, I did get the feeling I was like, oh, this is when he goes and dies. He gets stabbed and he has the whole bit where he says something about
I'm afraid to die, but not to be killed, or something like that.
Yeah.
Too many daggers in Rome. I was like, anyways.
Shaw, you smart man, you doing that clever foreshadow.
Yeah, I do agree with Mac that at the end of it, I was like, this does feel like he's gonna go up and die.
Yeah, it feels like he's marching off to he's off to go sail into the undying lands, and it's that's not Caesar. Caesar was off to go fight a heck of a lot more battles and then make a lot more enemies before he shows up in Rome and then dies.
I'll get more into this because I got to try and remember what you just said there because I've got something for one of the later questions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
this was all just the first question.
I know.
Leave it.
Thank you,
leave
Mr.
it to me, just like
Plummer.
we. Yes.
Mac just had to stir the pot.
Well, it's just like when Ryan and I did Amadeus, and I said I didn't like what's his name, Peter it's
Or,
Peter.
Adam Gillen,
Like Adam Gillen as Mozart, and Brian and I did a whole big debate on that.
Yeah, and Andrew and Allie were there too, I guess.
They were there too. They contributed.
Might as well just let them duke it out.
Yeah, exactly. But either way, why don't we get into the rest of this cast? Because this was a star-studded cast. I mean, you have some of the Stratford greats, including David Collins, who's come on to our show before. You also have the wonderful, as Rufio, funny enough, Peter Donaldson, who another great Canadian treasure who unfortunately passed away way too soon from cancer. He was great as Atticus Finch when they brought To Kill a Mockingbird to Stratford. He was a wonderful main stage actor of Stratford too, and he's in this production. It was great seeing him appear. But Ryan, who was your other cast shout out?
Cool, starting with me. So I have two. One, you gotta love a good Andre Sills. I know he had a small part in this, but man, does he, for his very few brief appearances as the Centurion, he commands the stage. Like, what a, and I think it helps that he doesn't share the stage with Plummer a lot or at all in this. They're kind of like, they have their own two separate plot lines. So
is that Coriolanus right there?
Yeah, he played Coriolanus. Okay, yes, I see what you're doing. But yeah, it kind of feels like, yes, Coriolanus is leading the Roman army in the Egyptian campaign. And like, I know this was done like a decade before that production of Coriolanus, but yeah, he's just such a talented actor and so, charismatic and such a force to be reckoned with. Even in a small role, he still kills it. But the other one I do want to give a shout out to is Gordon S. Miller as Apollodorus. Okay. So like, what a great talent he is. Like, it honestly kind of felt like he was doing like a Jim Carrey character just in the middle of this, very serious Roman play. But, we've seen him do Iago, we've seen him do Dr. Caius. He has proven his range, and this is certainly more on the Dr. Caius end of the spectrum. But, he was just really funny, and like every moment, the Sicilian, I am an artist. Like, not that this isn't a funny play in general, but he certainly brought the humor every time he was on stage. So I couldn't not give him a shout out for that.
Well, I'm going to piggyback because I also had Gordon S. Miller as the Sicilian. And he was wonderful. Like, he played the foil to so many of these straight role characters throughout the piece. And he really livened up those long Shaw scenes that we kind of get in the middle of the play, whether it's the scene with the Centurion and all that stuff, or you have the scene up in the lighthouse. Like, some of those scenes could drag if you didn't have him in there, livening it up with his little side remarks or the way he moved. There's like he commanded the space. Even with Plummer on stage, he still held his own against this Canadian treasure, this tour de force actor that was Mr. Plummer. And Gordon S. Miller just totally won me over the minute he shows up. And the fact that, like, even when like he shows up and he's riding the crane with the carpet, like just the way he held himself, like very chest out, like peacocking as he's like doing this great bit of acting. And it's like he just stole the show every time he was there. And you could see why this character was such a great salesman and was such a good, like, smart character, because Gordon S. Miller just brought so much cunning to him. And that's why I think you get to see those early seeds of what he's going to do later on as Iago and as Dr. Caius. You have the mix of the Dr. Caius humor mixed with the cunningness of Iago that he brings later on, that subtle bit of undertow all the time that he is ever so, once again, he's playing the board. He's figuring out Cleopatra's my backer here. If I can get in with her, because clearly her brother's on his way out, she's going to kill him off. Or sorry, he drowns in the river by Caesar. But like, he knows, like, he watches the board and goes, Cleopatra's my person that I need to kind of back. Ergo, I'm going to do everything in my power throughout this entire piece to make sure I stay on her good side and I play that game with her.
He's the Littlefinger, to put it back in Game of Thrones terms.
He is playing Littlefinger. Like, there's the moment where Cleopatra's killed, what's his name, the advisor.
What was his name? Pathonius, yeah.
Pathonius. And like, she's going around the room being like, who would like does anybody disagree? And of course, Gordon S. Miller is like, heck no, like, I would have done it for you if you'd asked me. Like, it's like, what a smarmy little, like, slide in line there that's, like, sliding into the DMs of Cleopatra being like, don't worry, girl, I got you. Like I don't worry,
Sorry, I was
it's
just
that thing
thinking of ancient Egyptian DMs. I think those are just called hieroglyphs. Sliding
but like
into
that's
her
what he's
hieroglyphs.
doing. But like that's what he's doing throughout this entire piece is he's working his way through all these Romans and working his way into being one of Cleopatra's closest advisors. Particularly once her nurse, her like her right hand is killed off by
whose
Rufio.
name I will not try to pronounce for you.
Yes. Yeah. Hold on.
Well, you didn't learn it after she said it like a million times.
You said it a million times.
Patata Tita?
Patata Tita.
Tota Tita.
It's
Yeah.
Tata Tita.
Tata Tita.
Tita.
Once again, another great shout out. She was my backup shout out too. Miss Diane Delaliqua, I think is how you say her name. But once again, she commanded the stage too. Like the reviews describe her as almost Cobra-like in the way that her headpiece and just her movements were very snake-like and very powerful.
She really went for it.
She went for it and she commanded, like when she gets killed off by Rufio at the end, I was like, "Aw, that sucks." Like she was a really kind of great, but yet you also get why Rufio kills her off.
You get the reason, but that scene is just so anticlimactic to me. Like I wanted to see her put up a fight, and I know I need to argue with Shaw for that. It's not.
Well, once again, we'll get into that because once again, that goes under direction. We're gonna get into that. But like she was another great presence. Like even when she's a very silent role, she doesn't say a lot, but it's all physicality with her. But yet the way she moved about the space, she commanded, and you can see where Cleopatra gets that because later on she's gonna have that very same physical presence about her as the queen. Like there is a clear Cleopatra learning and taking stuff from her advisors and her mentors throughout this piece and learning. And Fatata Tito is definitely one of these people that Cleopatra learns from. There's that ruthless, slithery nature about her that Cleopatra takes on by the end of the piece. That it's like, ooh,
and
I can see why Rufio fears you. Yeah.
Like the way she commands her room. Like compare Cleopatra and Fatata Tita in the first scene you see them together, where you're like, Caesar was like, check how you speak to your queen. And at first I was like, who's queen? Who is queen? So like she definitely commanded the stage. And yeah, you're right. You could see where Cleopatra got that from as well.
Yeah. Tanisha, who was your other performer shout out?
I have to shout out Nikki M. James. I know that she got a bad rap in Romeo and Juliet, but like I loved just the choices she made as an actor. A lot of they were amazing. And I knew that she was a young Cleopatra and she kept that energy throughout, even like as she was still growing into a queen. There's still like that young, like energetic fire, naiveness, like naive ambition there. What else? Because I wrote things down when I was watching. I loved her like playfulness, like her like just willingness to commit 100% to like her choices going for them, and then that made it so easy for everyone else to like play off of her. And it was just very beautiful to watch her athleticism as an actor. Like, the amount of like screaming and whining she does. But there's still an intelligence there. Yeah, I just had to shout her out because I think she did such a great job. And then since you said like this was a backup role, like something they were just like, can you take this on?
No pressure.
Yeah, the lead role. Can you just take this on? It's like a legendary person. I think she did it very well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like Nikki and James did very well within the sandbox that Des McAnuff gave her to play in, and she used all the tools that she could with what she was given in direction for this character. Like she was wonderful. Like that. You're right. That childlike petulance that she has at the beginning, especially with her brother, like so wonderful. Like you got to see that young Cleopatra who's still coming into her own. And yet by the end, there is a little bit. You can see she's matured up a little bit, but there's still that childlike nature within her. And once again, that's tying back to Shakespeare because Shakespeare's Cleopatra is very similar in that vein of she has these big pendulum swings of character where at one moment she is ruling as a queen and the next minute she is acting like a lovesick teenager with Mark Antony. Like, you're getting that great. We're going to get into this more when we get into Shaw. But like, Nikki M did a very good job of tying Cleopatras together. Like, you could see where this could grow into if they were doing a double program of Antony and Caesar Cleopatra, like in the same season. You could have her play like the two Cleopatras. I would not be opposed to that because I think she could step into the more mature Cleopatra in an evening performance after doing a matinee of a young Cleopatra. She has that race. And mind you, she's a Tony-winning actress for Book of Mormon, so she is a very strong performer in her own right. So good on you, Nikki M. James. Ed, I'm sure we've probably taken all your people, unless there's some surprise.
Well, isn't it obvious? Isn't it obvious? It's Christopher Plummer stepping into the role of Christopher Plummer during his standing ovation.
I'm calling foul on that. The first question was, what did you think of Plummer specifically? No loophole is getting you ahead of that.
Okay, now that my joke is out of the way. Mine was very vocally driven because these two actors, I thought, wow, they really have a voice on them. And that I have to give to John Vickery.
Yes.
Did I say his last name right? John Vickery as
the
Lucius
original
Septimus.
Scar and Lion King on Broadway. So
he's God, he's got a very velvety voice. And then so every time he stepped onto the stage, I was just like, I want to hear what this guy has to say. And the other person is Stephen Sutcliffe as Brittanus. I thought there was clarity in his voice. I mean, the character was funny as well. But I just found him so interesting to listen to. I always enjoyed seeing those two people on the stage, especially side by side with Plummer and when they were exchanging their lines. There were some moments where for Sutcliffe, he got a bit peaky, but that was very minimal. The rest of it was very tempered, nice, and controlled. So I really got a kick out of their roles.
Yeah. And once again, this is a very strong ensemble that Des McAnuff was able to put together.
I feel like we've used the words command the stage, referring to so many different people. Is it possible that just everyone was commanding the stage?
Once again, this was a baton passing a show where like everybody kind of took a chance had a turn passing this baton around of control the stage. And it always came back to Plummer. Plummer was always the guy who was always like, and it's back to me. And I'll give it over to somebody else, and then we'll kind of bounce around from there. But Plummer was always the anchor of this piece. But overall, this is a very solid ensemble cast. All right, why don't we get into what was our favorite production or design element? And for this one, Ed, I'll let you start since you were the last one to answer on the last question.
Yeah, so one that was just consistently really nice to watch and look at were the costumes. And I just think those were consistently good. That was the one that the star moment for me in this production was the set, just one particular set, and that was the Sphinx in the very beginning, because that I connected to Ozymandias, the poem by
Shelley,
Percy Shelley, and just it's buried in the sand and it's crumbled and broken, and Caesar coming from the silver desert to look upon this thing.
Mighty in despair, perhaps.
Exactly. Look upon my works. So that set piece in particular was, I just thought, wow, that's a really excellent way to start off the show. And I think McAnuff was right, having him come from the Vom, yeah. So those would be my two favorites. And I mean, I would say the direction is up there as well, but I think we're going to get further into the direction afterwards, right?
Yes. Yeah. I'll piggyback though, because set was also my shout out. So shout out to Mr. Robert Brill.
One piece of set for me.
Not the whole set.
Not the whole set.
Did not care for the element. Spa or the trapdoor or anything else.
Oh, okay, we're going to get into that later. Okay, either way. Well, I'm giving the whole set a shout out for this. Because, once again, what Mr. Brill did so well was he captured the architectural power that the Egyptians had. Like, we forget that Egyptians and in this ancient society of people, they were masters of they were master builders, like as Tanisha shows in her background there with that beautiful Sphinx and the Great Pyramids. Like this was a group who knew how to build, and Mr. Brill captured that epic scale.
To be fair, the aliens did help them.
No, they had their own tools. Okay, I'm not here about their counterweight system and their boiling
I was
water.
kidding. They did have a lot of slave labor, I will say, but
yeah, a lot of slave labor built it. But like the Egyptians were they were master builders, and Mr. Brill captured that. Yet he also added in the worn quality of this world that I felt even like looking at the pillars behind the lighthouse. The fact that they were chipped and kind of worn down, they weren't pristine and nice looking. It was more like OG trilogy Star Wars that looked lived in compared to CGI prequel trilogy Star Wars that was like shiny and new. There was this lived in world, and the fact that these sets, every time a new one came in, you got new levels and new ways to play around on the set, whether you had added stairs or the crane trap door or the spa or the Sphinx. Like that stage, people don't realize just there actually isn't a ton of space on that stage to really kind of move set pieces in and around. And the fact that you had, every time there was a new scene, there was a new bit of set that came out to give you a new piece to play on. And these actors used that set piece. They moved around the main table. They moved around the crane hole. They jumped off the ledge into the water sound effect. Very hokey sound effect.
Do sound.
Yeah, Q sound, literally. But like, yeah, like even at the end with like the prow of the ship coming in, that's a big ass prow of a ship. They caught that size of what that ship would have been. It wasn't some rinky-dink rowboat that they're getting Caesar to row away in at the end. It was like, nope, Caesar's gonna get on a big ass boat.
It wasn't the type of boat that could be broken by a falling leather bag of letters.
Yes, exactly.
To be fair, the latter would have been hilarious.
If it was just a little rinky rowboat.
Caesar!
But yeah, I mean, like Mr. Brill, he just captured that epicness of this ancient society, and also gave the actors a lot to play with on the set. It wasn't just like a lot of times with these sets, you get the one thing like we saw with the Tempest with Martha Henry. That tree was always on stage. And it was like, okay, how many ways can we use this one tree and this one extra stump on stage? Here it was like Des McAnuff always, like even with his production of The Tempest, brought in different, like that's something he was just really good at using, was the different qualities of the set to help inform a world. So
that said, speaking of the tree and The Tempest, like how much more interesting, in my opinion, it might have been if that Sphinx was on stage the whole time. If it
could have been interesting,
especially speaking of like the Ozymandias symbolism that Ed was talking about, like this kind of constant reminder that even Caesar, who's frequently referred to as a god, will fall. Like I think there's while it's impressive technically, like in a technical realm, it is impressive, like all the big sets and moving all the pieces, and shout out to the ASM crew. But I think sometimes less is more in a way with a lot of these things. And, you can have your one big set piece, but maybe commit to that as this has to do the symbolic heavy lifting for the whole show, as opposed to leaving kind of less to the audience imagination, because yes, we do have a big boat coming in. Look, we got a boat. I don't know. Just my 2 cents on that.
So clearly, Ryan, set was not your shout out.
It was not.
What was it then?
It was the costumes, actually, which Ed sort of alluded to earlier. But I just thought like all the Egyptians and the Romans had like really just like visually fascinating outfits. The Romans kind of a little more uniformity, except for people like Brittanus, who had his blue tunic, which made him like a nice kind of outsider contrast to that. Yeah, he talked about painting himself blue in battle, as we do in Britannia.
He was going full Braveheart.
Yeah, and like I don't know. I think like the Egyptian costumes were also different from each other. They didn't have that like Roman uniformity. They kind of had more of like a expressive personality. All of David Collins's costumes were like really big and elaborate, and I was like here for it. And he had like several of them. Yes. For like a fairly kind of like middle minor-ish character he was playing. He had like 3 very elaborate costumes devoted to him that I thought looked really cool.
Yeah.
But actually, one little costume piece in particular that I do want to shout out is in the spa scene, the very green, almost like towel-like dress that Cleopatra's wearing. Because, like I kind of quoted earlier in her salad days when she was green with judgment, this play is dramatizing her becoming less green and less naive and growing up into the leader we know she would once become. So that kind of detail at once makes her pop and stand out from the rest of her courtiers who are also dressed for bathing.
Well, it's funny,
yeah,
because going that same scene, that same moment, that same dress, she speaks about how she speaks from an envious position, right? How she's how she's unable to seduce Caesar, right?
Yeah,
she can't make him jealous.
So there's like a lot going on with just like a simple.
See, Cleopatra is sexual. She was trying to seduce the man.
Yeah, but she failed because that's what this play is. It's not about what happened in actual history.
Thank you, Ryan. Just said it straight up. It's not about what happened in actual history. But you still get you still get enough to fill in the blanks, right? You can assume you can look at it as 2 interpretations of, okay, she spent that 6 months with Caesar learning, and on the other side of it, maybe doing some other things.
History always involves like men and like, you know what I mean? Especially if the men are older and the women are younger. I feel like if it's history, we can assume that it happened. All right.
Yeah.
Especially if power is involved.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Women throughout history, that was one of the few avenues through which they could gain power. And
that's what Cersei talks about in season 2 during the siege of Blackwater, when she's locked up in the tower with Sansa. She goes, "This is what I do. I have my methods of manipulating the men around me." Like,
well, it's not like they gave us hammers and stuff and they were like,
true,
you can work too. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Right? Well, that's the thing. Like, Cleopatra was smart. She knew what powers she had, and she knew how to use them well. Hence why she was one of the great rulers of Egypt. All right, up until the very end. But yes, costumes. Great choice, Ryan. Like,
that's my pick.
Yeah, like gorgeous costumes. Tanisha, what was yours?
Costumes were a shout out for me because like Stratford, I know they have a massive warehouse. Like if they're doing a piece like this, I honestly just expect your costumes to be on point. Like, I expect nothing less. Are you kidding me? If you're doing Cleopatra, I expect 3 hair changes and 3 dress changes at least. And they gave me that, which I was living for. I loved her. Last week that she wore, it was gorgeous. All the headdresses, so gorgeous. But I was super blown away by the set. I don't like the stage construction. I don't care if you put a spot on stage. I'm here for it. No one does that. Like water on stage.
This is such a recurring topic on this show: the water on the stage.
Because no one does water or fire on stage. It's a nightmare for ASMs. It's a nightmare for everybody. But when you do it, you do it well and you pull it off. I'm here for it. I live for it. I'm gonna shout it out. I also was like just living for the stair moment and the trap.
Yes.
I was like, where are they going? I love that as an audience member because even though I know theater production, I'm like, where did they go?
Where did they jump to?
When they jumped off the ledge, I'm like, there must be a massive like mattress there. Like, so I love moments like that.
There were just like 3 stagehands, like, okay, Mr. Plummer, we'll catch you.
We caught you, Mr. Plummer.
Like moments like that as a spectator, like for theater, I love because like it's just like, I don't know, it's just what I expect from like a theater, especially like Stratford. Like, please blow me away. I don't want you to have one fucking tree and one stump. What? Sorry for swearing, but what?
You get your one.
Yes, I get my one. I got it. But yeah, like this. Yeah, I get you have a small stage, but you're not a small stage. So
yes,
that's why
nice way of putting it. Yeah. I like that.
Yeah. All right. Well, now let's get into the weakest part of the production. I feel we're going to get.
Let me take it away.
Ed, you start.
I know I already went first last time, but just
no, it's okay. You can go first this time. I can see you chomping at the bit for this.
Yeah. Weakest part was the set. I'm just gonna say it. It was that's why I said the only thing I liked about the set was the Sphinx.
So the set was both your favorite and least favorite thing about this production.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
Sound was sound. I don't think there was anything for me that really popped out for sound, but the set was just so. It was okay, cool, right? I'm not really looking for a spectacle, especially with a piece of this size and a stage of that size. I'm not looking for a spectacle. I'm looking for, how they interact with the set, how they bring meaning to the set. The set didn't seem to come alive. Like there's clear functional things that they needed to use for that, for whatever scene that they were in, like the crane going into the floor. But I didn't see it as anything, I guess, compelling, right? There were some moments where the set itself was, and this is why I didn't like it, was more interesting than watching some of the scenes. I was looking at the Anubis sculptures in the back, and I was like, wow, look at all that detail. While they're having this scene between the centurion and Cleopatra, right? And then I'm like, oh, wait, what are they saying? Like the set can be both distracting within this performance, and then also just too much. I think having, right, just what Ryan said, having the Sphinx in the background throughout the entire play as that centerpiece, I think that just speaks so much. It's representative of so much. So I thought the set was meh. It was a good looking set, right? If you're wanting to go and look at things that are interesting, that or like make you whoa, right? But I'm not going to the theater, to watch Godzilla and King Kong. I'm going to
go to HBO Max for that.
Yeah. But that's how we compare it, right? I don't go to King Kong. I don't go to watch Godzilla and King Kong for anything, enlightening or thought provoking. I go to it's purely spectacle. But I thought the set was just, most of it was just very spectacle. I think a little less would have done it a lot more justice.
Yeah, Des likes his spectacle.
He does. Well, I'm thinking about that wonderful Tempest turntable set that he had that went up and down to give them varying, which once again, like Des does agree. I have to disagree. And there's certain times where I will agree, and it's like in 12th Night where they had the random floating mini fridge. That was weird. But for the most part, as long as the spectacle worked within the scene, I was okay with it, which is why I was very okay with this set, because once again, like this felt kind of like an old Hollywood movie where with Liz Taylor, where she played Cleopatra and they had big sets. Like this is an epic story. Ergo, you go epic on all scale of things. This is an epic story of these two big historical figures playing opposite each other, duking it out on stage in their own way.
Yeah, to Ed's point, though, you can watch that old movie if you want to see that. It's not necessarily what, going to the theater has to be about, or,
But it's something that, people do love about the theater.
Yeah. Why do you think people like a big box musical? Why is it everybody cries when Elphaba flies at the end of Act 1 and Wicked?
Because it's an empowering character beat, not because it's such a marvelous spectacle.
It is a marvelous spectacle.
Why can't it be both?
I guess it can be both, like the taco commercial says.
I'll say
for example, Phantom of the Opera, the Chandelier, that show survived on spectacle because those characters don't do much.
But there's been debate about musical theater and being spectacle, right?
In fact, we had a debate about that on this very show. Are musicals low art? Go watch that episode. Tile in the top corner, probably.
I see
don't know where I'm
this
pointing.
play. Yeah, no, Brian, thank you. Just to my point, I see this play as being something that's not an epic, though it depicts an epic story. It's not an epic. And then also when the play starts off with just Plummer and the Sphinx, the torn, half buried Sphinx, and he's just speaking his words, and you're just listening, and the set, you're just watching this. He looks at it, he brings it focus, and you're looking at the set, and just all the themes of what Caesar is. It's just right then and there, and I just want to keep that going. But then it just gets really flashy, and I'm, this is cool. The sets are nice. I'm not disagreeing that they're nice. I just think it would have probably done better in a movie than.
So it's kind of like how I said Plummer was great. a little bit too old. You're saying the sets, while great, didn't quite fit the production.
Ryan, is that what I'm saying?
Like, it's a reasonable analogy. I don't think that's what you're saying, but we can give him this one.
Oh, thank you, oh gracious literary.
Well, like we all disagreed with you so hard last time you mentioned that exact point, so we can give you this one.
Yeah. So I figured I'd start that question.
Yeah,
off.
no, great start. Tanisha, what was your weakest element of the production?
It's hard to, like, they pulled out all the stops for this production, so it's hard to just like nitpick and be like, what's my weakest? Because I didn't notice it, which is a thing, is lighting. Like, if I notice the lighting, that's because you're doing cool stuff with it and I like it. But like, it did its job. So I mean, just to be nitpicky, that's what I'm gonna say.
I can piggyback off of that because I had the same rationale for what I picked, and that's the sound and music design. Like, nothing really drew attention to itself, which isn't always needed, but it's very much lighting and sound rarely rarely wind up being showstoppers, but when they are, man, is it memorable. And
right?
This production, I didn't take note of who did the design for light and sound, but they certainly
they did their job.
They did their job.
Actors,
yeah,
they got the cues that they needed.
No bells and whistles though.
Yeah.
Because they did it all on the set in the costume. They didn't have any more bells and whistles left.
And I don't imagine Mr. Plummer, comes for cheap. Like,
that's what I'm saying.
Yes, we don't know, Mr. Plummer, what your salary was. I'm sure Stratford happily paid it.
I hope so.
He was an executive producer for the play, so
yes,
recycle.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
There you go. Okay, well, my weakest element was the direction by Des McAnuff. It was very uneven in this piece. Like, it was uneven. Like there were moments, like he was like, some moments were great. Like some of the scenes where it was just James and Plummer together, really awesome. But then some of the bigger cast scenes kind of fell flat after a while. Like, it kind of went on. The movement didn't always feel earned. It was like, okay, David Collins has to move now, because if he doesn't, it's really just going to be parking and barking, and there wasn't really a motivation to move. And like a lot of these scenes where you needed that energy, like the death of Patata Tita, or after Polythinus, whatever his name was, him is killed. Like, in the fact that now the city's in an uproar, and like people, it's supposed to be a panicking moment until John Vickery comes back in as Lucius and gives them the good news of like, we have the ability to retake the city. This isn't, it's not all lost. But yet that scene didn't have any of that agency, that like fear of, oh shit, what did Cleopatra just do? Did she just doom everybody in this room to death by an angry mob of Egyptians? Like that scene just kind of flatlined after a while, because like it was like, oh, he's dead. Oh wow, there's an angry mob like storming our place.
But it's a comedy, Mac. It's a comedy.
You can have a comedy that still has drive and agency, and there just was a lack of agency in these key moments.
I have to agree. Like with the bigger cast scenes,
yes.
I was kind of like, what is everyone doing on stage? Like, I had that moment as I was like, why? Especially that one scene in particular with the Cleopatra and her brother, and everyone's like in a massive circle.
Yeah.
But with their backs to the audience. I don't know. Yes. It was a really weird scene.
Once again, that's another. Yeah, it's a great example.
And
that's a tense scene.
Yeah, and during that scene, I was just kind of like, "What the fuck is going?" Oh, sorry.
You get to.
I was like, "What is going on?" And you know what? Just like blocking a little bit more direction in that scene would have gone a long way for me as a audience member who like had no idea what was going on in that scene, like what the power dynamic was, what was even going on. Anyways, Yeah. I just
Like, like, and I mean, like, Des, once again, like, it seems like he read some history to get references, but then not the whole history. Like, for example, Cleopatra very famously did get rolled up in a carpet and got brought to Caesar in the lighthouse. And she was dressed very provocatively to seduce Caesar and ensure he was on her side. So sure enough, Nikki M. James has a costume change, gets and is wearing that kind of Yana Mackinac dress that we're going to see a few decades later. That's like kind of side openings throughout the piece. That is supposed to be very seductive, and she unrolls herself from the carpet and she's there, but then it's like we're missing what the point of that costume was. Like, why did she change into this outfit? It was because she was trying to seduce Caesar. But yeah,
maybe that wasn't the point. Maybe that wasn't.
But he made the directorial choice to have her change costume and to do this very historical moment where she was supposed to be doing that and ensuring Caesar's on his side. But then he didn't go all the way. He kind of, once again, ties back to the age difference of you can't do that because it's going to get way too freaking creepy. But at the same time, it's like you're missing. Like he just, it was very uneven in what was going on, and in certain scenes with like Nikki M. James and Plummer at the beginning at the Sphinx, their playfulness was great, but by the end, it still felt like the same relationship. I didn't feel like there was enough evolution to them by the end that she had grown enough.
Caesar is a rock. Caesar's not the one that's if anything, this play isn't really about Caesar as it is much about how Cleopatra grows. So it's the thing about Caesar doesn't, it's like I don't see it as something that's supposed to change. From what I'm getting from what you want from him. I
want Caesar to have an evolution in this piece as well. I mean, this is a guy, when he gets to Alexandria and Egypt, he's kind of a little bit faded out. He's not top of his game anymore. He's kind of backed himself into a corner with this battle. But yet by the end, he's re-energized. He's going to go back, fight his way back to Rome. He's ready to go, but yet it didn't feel that way.
I've got a famous saying for you.
Oh, good.
I came, I saw, I conquered. You know who said that?
Caesar?
I like what Ryan said. We are at the precipice of his death. Like Caesar
But he's not at the precipice of his death. Like that, we're at the precipice of his death because of the wonderful Plummer, as wonderful as he is, but his age and the way he played this role as an elder, grandfatherly statesman.
But he speaks about his death. He speaks about
this play is about an elderly Caesar, even if historically he was not yet elderly by that point.
Yeah.
Take it up with Shaw again.
Take it up with Shaw.
Damn it, Shaw.
And would he have conquered, or would he have supervised the conquering? I mean,
Caesar was someone who was like throughout the piece, he's always putting on his armor. He was always willing to go into battle. Like he seemed
pretty in control to me the entire time.
You can be in control, but this seems more, once again, like we're not going to go back into the Plummer argument because we already did this argument. This focus on Des McAnuff as a director being uneven in his direction in this.
I'm not here to say that McAnuff 100% super precise, accuracy on point with the direction, but he really got some moments. I mean, that last scene,
he did get some moments. Ergo, it's uneven. Some moments hit, some moments didn't hit.
Okay, but I wouldn't give that the weakest production element.
I would.
I mean, there's
but you did.
Mac came, he saw.
I'm calling it out. I mean, I love Des McAnuff. I think he did some really great productions. His 12th Night is still one of my favorite 12th Nights I've ever seen. This production, overall, not a bad production. It's just a lot of times the bigger scenes can be very uneven.
I think,
as Denise just pointed out too.
I think for those bigger scenes, I think that was maybe twofold as opposed to just on McAnuff, because I think that was also a part on the actors as well. Like some of the interactions between the actors were very one note. All the Egyptians yelled, and all the Romans all the Romans, aside from Brittanus and Septimus and the ones who would just come in and then leave, were yelling back. So I felt those scenes felt
But
flat.
that's on a
that's
director.
McAnuff.
That is the director's job, as we all know, is he's the outside eye who's going to be calling that type of thing and going, we gotta vary this, guys. We gotta work with the it's not on the actors in the scene. It's their job to perform the scene. It's the director's job to be the outside eye looking in on the scene, going, what isn't working or what needs to change to give us.
So it's twofold. It's twofold. It's still twofold.
The actor gives the director the scene. It's the director's job to mold that scene and refine it and distill it down and make sure that things are make sure the movements are organic and driven, not I gotta move for the sake of movement, or as Tanisha said in the one scene of, let's have half our cast stand with our backs to the audience and there just be no real motivation, even though this is a very tense power struggle scene between a brother and a sister.
Can we agree that it's a twofold issue, not just all McAnuff? Or are you saying that it's all McAnuff?
It's all McAnuff because he's the director. The buck stops with him. He makes the choice.
That means we're justifying just poor performances from all around because on directing.
If there's a poor
not from
performance,
them,
it's the director's job to call that out.
I take an example like The Room with Tommy Wiseau. Okay, he's the director.
You would,
right? I mean, let's do it. Right? We're gonna say that it was Lisa and Matt, who I think is his buddy's fault for being bad. Like I think those guys are just bad. They're
bad, but as Tommy Wiseau as the director was not a good director in the first place. Ergo, he did not make a good product because he didn't know how to mold his piece.
Or did he make a secret masterpiece? Who knows? The jury's out on that one.
He didn't. It is not a cult classic. It is just a bad movie.
It is a cult classic. That doesn't mean it is a masterpiece. Those are very different things.
Once again, Tommy Wiseau not a great director. Ergo, he was not able to mold and work with the cast. That's not the actor's fault. The actors do what they're directed. We've seen many productions where a director is not.
But we can say that they're not mutually exclusive. Like as soon as
if a bad actor shows up within a piece, then it's the director. Then it's the director's fault for casting that person. Because once again, the buck stops with the director. If I cast somebody who does not fit this part, it comes back on me as director, going, why the heck did Matt cast Joe Blow as his actor? Clearly
Joe Blow, terrible actor. Yeah,
and there are no bad actors.
But who's to say Joe Blow doesn't have a bad night? Like I totally get what
he
Max
could have a bad night
because like the director is able to be like, hey, like, is there a better choice for you to make tactically as an actor? So we're not all yelling at each other. But to further that, the director leaves after the first night. Like, peace out.
Unless you're Des McAnuff, whose office is literally like right up the road from the stage.
True,
literally.
Like their job technically is done. Now it is on the actor. After like the show like opens, it is on the actor to make sure those choices happen every night. So like to that point, he would have been like, before it opens, he would have been like, make better choices so it's not everyone yelling at each other. After he leaves, like if an actor doesn't go back to like better choices, like that's what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Sure,
I really get an argument that's happening here. It's like who
I'm
do
not
we blame?
saying,
but it's like what you said. It's a twofold thing, right?
Yes, exactly.
The relationship.
It is twofold.
Because I remember being in acting school, and we were taught that there's generally two types of directors. Ones that just direct, they just step in, you stand here, you walk over there. And then there's like acting directors who teach you who want to show you what exactly you need to do, what they want to see. You know, it could have been a case. My philosophy with directors is I like the director that steps in, tells you where to stand, where to go, and then you leave the acting to me, right? But it could have been the case of that. But I think it's a twofold issue. Not saying that McAnuff was perfect, but I think there were
kind of one last thing I'll sort of add to this whole debate is that the dangerous flip side of the argument you're making, Mac, is that, you know, when an actor gives a great performance, it's all the director's fault by the same logic, that like it takes the agency away from the actors to be artists in their own right because they're just puppets of the director by this logic. I think if we can blame a bad director for a bad performance from an actor, so too does it like only mean that, you know, the director's the only person who gets credit for a good performance from an actor.
Yeah.
I mean, like
And Mac,
well,
and
I
Mac,
mean,
I'm not saying
well,
it could very well be all on McAnuff.
But we
I
weren't in
think
the room, so we can't say.
we weren't in the
I
room. We
think
definitely weren't in the room.
it's
But once again, like the buck stops with the director as the outside eye. It was his job in the rehearsal room to look at everybody and go, "You're all yelling at each other. There's no varying here. It's all flat. There's no peaks and valleys in this, unless he was just, because once again, his best scenes were when it was just Cleopatra and Caesar, because he was working with two really strong actors, and when you can just work with the two people who already have a great base, and the fact that Nikki M. James had a history with Des McAnuff, having done some productions with him ahead of time, like they already had a shorthand, and you're working with Christopher Plummer, who, like, he's Christopher Plummer. Like, there's not much he needs for that. Like, so like
I
those
can agree with you on
worked.
that. I can
But
agree with you on that. That the director's job is to step in and make sure that things are still flawless.
Exactly. Like
right?
exactly. And that's the thing. Like if I'm a director and I'm watching a big group scene and I'm not seeing it going the way it should. Now, once again, as Nisha points out, if after a director leaves, things fall into a bad spot where the director's clean hasn't wanted to go, then it's the stage manager's job to go flag that thing, and maybe the director has to come back for a night. I mean, I've been in productions where that's happened, where directors come back and gone, "Guys, we're off our mark here. Let's get back in." Or a lot of times in these bigger shows, you have the assistant resident director, like Stratford does, who has somebody watching almost every night and making notes for the actors to continually ensure they're on.
Or
beat.
usually it's the stage manager. Like the director will leave it in the hands of the stage manager.
Exactly.
And your stage manager will be like, "Hey, you're not doing the choice that the director and you discussed."
Exactly.
Well, like, it's their job. But
exactly. And so once again, like if there's no note saying the actor should not be yelling their entire piece, then the stage manager has nothing to comment on. So once again, that ties back to, if there's no clear direction given, then sometimes you can get an uneven performance. Okay. All right, but let's get into, do we think this production is worth the watching? Ryan, I'll let you start this one. As a TA.
Always as the TA.
Resident TA.
I never get to answer this question as just, someone who enjoys watching theater. It always has to be educational.
It's for the kids, Ryan. It's for the kids.
So, when you phrase the question this way, I kind of always have to approach it from two perspectives. That, like, if we are in a class where we are studying Caesar and Cleopatra, then yes, I think this is a good production that, like, does the text justice. It's very Shavian. It's, wonderfully acted. And if, students are having a hard time, Shaw is often a slog to read, but, like, he does pop on stage a lot of the time, and when it's done well. And I think, for educational purposes, it is helpful to give students an actual, something tactile to watch. And I think this would be a good production for that. If I'm trying to think of, like, a different context, like if it was just an acting class, I think this is, like, study Plummer's acting. He is, one of the greats, and maybe you too can make it look so effortless, just by, with a lot of hard work and gumption. It might just be like toying with the students, but, because, like, once you've been doing it for 7 decades, maybe you too will be this talented. But overall, I don't know. I'm just rambling here. I think, I enjoyed it. Good watch. Would recommend. Hit the mark.
10 out of 10.
Solid 8.
Okay.
That's fair. Tanisha, do you think this is worth the watch? Would you recommend this to a friend?
Yeah, for sure. I definitely would. It's one of those performances where, like, across the board, like, there's amazing performance. So, like, the clarity is there. Like, as an actor, definitely I would watch this, or, like, recommend it. There's a lot you can pull, not even, like, obviously from the legend, but, like, from other people as well. And, like, just as a theater goer, I liked it. It was very enjoyable to watch. So I'd recommend it.
There you go.
I would give it a solid 9.
Nice.
Ed, what is your rating out of 10? And is this worth the watch? That's going to be a new element we're now going to add in now.
So, actors can be such selfish creatures, So, well, go on the stage, me, right? I want the spotlight, right? I think it's truly special when you find a performance you respect a lot of the actors on there, and you just want to, as an actor, you just want to digest that more and more. This is definitely a play I would watch again and again. It was so much fun to go through. The archetypes of everybody on stage was just really, really spectacular to watch. And then, yeah, it took me 2 nights to watch it because I had a bunch of schoolwork, but that first hour went by so fast, and I was like, it's already time for bed. I hated it. It's like I hated that I needed to go to bed. And then, I mean, when I finished it today, I was like, wow, it just breezed on by. So it is worth the watch for sure. I whoever you are, dramaturge, teacher, student, actor, professional,
friends, Romans, countrymen.
That's
friends,
right.
Romans, countrymen.
Lend me your eyeballs to watch this performance.
Honestly.
But what's your rating out of 10 though, Ed?
Oh, I'd give it a 7 or 8.
Oh, yours was the lowest so far, and that was the highest praise.
I'm a very like
I'm a hard marker.
I'm a hard marker. Yeah.
You get a B from me, son.
Yeah. I don't believe in A's.
Yeah, clearly.
Well, I mean, for me, this is just great to watch. I mean, now that Christopher Plummer has passed, this is easily one that I would say, if you want to see some of his stage work, because I mean, we're all gonna watch Sound of Music, we're all gonna watch Knives Out, some of his more classic modern films. But if you want to see something about his stage work, I mean, we have Prospero in The Tempest. We have, I believe, there's also a recording of his performance as John Barrymore in Barrymore. There's like 3 solid Plummer performances we can tap into, and I think this is easily one to watch. I mean, even if I did think he was a little bit too old for the role, he still did a great job within the role itself and was a very good elder Caesar, even if that's what I don't think the play's supposed to be. In the rest of the
it is what the play is supposed to be. It's not what the history is supposed to be.
We're not getting into this again. We're an hour and a half into this sucker. We're not getting into that. Either way, but I mean, like this. I mean, for the sake of watching a Shaw play, sure. I mean, this is not a bad Canadian version of Shaw. I mean, the fact this isn't done by the Shaw Festival, who are kind of the resident Shaw people, it's interesting. But I mean, overall, it's pretty well filmed. The sets are great. The costumes are great. A solid 7.5 out of 10 for me.
Okay.
Like Christopher Plummer makes up a majority of that 7.5. So, but like it's a solid 7.5 out of 10. Solid B plus performance for sure. Yeah. Yeah. Cool. I mean, hey, we did great. I mean, we had an 8 out of 10. We had I think Tanisha, you said 9 out of 10. Then we have Ed being like a 7 or an 8 out of 10, depending on his mood.
I'll just give it a 7.
All right, you give it a 7. I'll give it 7.5. There we go. We have a nice solid range of.
If you really want to watch something that's between a 7 and a 9, you can't go wrong.
Exactly. Exactly. But all right, why don't we dive into some more play-based questions? And first off, what do we think Shaw might be trying to say about Shakespeare's Antony and Cleopatra writing this companion piece, Caesar and Cleopatra? Ryan, as our resident dramaturg and literary manager, what are your thoughts on these companion pieces? What is Shaw trying to say?
Well, in case it wasn't clear, I am not George Bernard Shaw, so I don't know precisely what he was trying to say. Yes, I'm shocked.
You're not the reincarnate of Shaw?
No, I'm not. But something that strikes me about this play that I think is interesting, and I don't know if this really answers the question, but it's what I got for you, is I think it's really funny and amusing how much this, like, we used chessboard imagery a little while ago, how this play seems to be setting up the pieces for Antony and Cleopatra, and it's almost kind of like Shakespeare fan fiction in that sense. Like, for those who are familiar with my playwriting knows that I think I kind of wrote a similar play to this also with sphinxes involved, called The Sphinx Lands in Corinth. That basic
play.
Oh, and
Great play. Great play, I have to say.
Yeah, well, thank you, Tanisha. I don't believe you've read it, but take their word for it.
My way.
Will do. But yeah, so that play that I wrote, not to, very shameful self-promo here, but it's bridges the gap between two established Greek tragedies, and to say which ones would be spoilers. And I think that's kind of what Shaw has done with between Julius Caesar, or not between Julius Caesar and Caesar and Cleopatra, but at least it very much is playing intertextually with these two other Shakespeare plays. And
you could program it as a trilogy. Start with Caesar, Cleopatra, go to Julius Caesar, and then end with Antony, Cleopatra. I think that'd be a great programming. I think that's a great way of doing that.
Yeah,
so track these characters.
Mm-hmm. Like, I don't have any grand ruminations about, what is he saying about the nature of power and Rome's relationship to Egypt and what it's trying to say to us today. And by today, I mean, oh my God, Mac, your head disappeared.
You have disappeared.
Did you put on a green mask while we were?
No, I did not. Hello.
Okay, wait.
Can you
lean forward
your face right now?
Wow. Did that
there we
help?
go. I'm back.
Okay, you're back.
Yeah, we're back.
Huzzah. Yeah, so while I don't have like any kind of big thoughts about, what is being improved upon with this play, like, because Shaw thought he was better than Shakespeare. This is known. We might get into this in one of the other forthcoming questions a bit, but like, I've never been Shaw's biggest fan. I respect him. I think he has like an important place in theater history, but like a lot of his plays are all about just sort of, they're not stories most of the time, or they don't really they're not gripping narratives. They're excuses to show off how witty he is. He was the Aaron Sorkin of his day. But I kind of hinted earlier that I think Antony and Cleopatra is a better play than this, and I do stand by that because that's a story. It's about, it is more so about the relationship between love and power than it is about, oh man, how cool is Caesar, and Cleopatra was kind of cool also, and I can make them say funny things because I'm so witty. Notice me. But yeah, I think, what Shaw might have been trying to say is, look at how I can write a Shakespeare play pretty well. And I think he only kind of half succeeded at that. I don't know. Someone else say something more profound.
I want to piggyback off this.
Yes,
I think that's so interesting. I feel like he didn't even half succeed because he didn't do iambic pentameter. Like, that's Shakespeare. All right. You did like this speech in the beginning that I thought maybe could have been, but it definitely wasn't. So like, he did good, but I also too have he has a place in theater, but I'm not his hugest fan. And
sorry, Shaw.
Sorry, buddy. But
Team
like
Shakespeare.
there are things that we can take and kind of just run with and piggyback off of. That's a whole nother thing. But if anything, the thing that I think about, not that I know what he was trying to say, but this could be something he was maybe exploring, was just how Cleopatra, just her relationship to power and men, because she learned from Caesar, and then she learned a bit from Antony, but it was also they have that love affair, right?
We don't get to see their learning process because we pick up Antony and Cleopatra at the end of their relationship.
She's pretty fully formed as a leader by then, and it's her downfall thereafter that was being dramatized.
You're right, exactly. So it's I feel like he was well, if you're going to talk about how amazing she is as a leader, wait, I have to tell you how she got there. It was men. And
Oh,
my little issue with Shaw is the way he views women, depicts women. But if anything, that's where my head is just kind of wanting to dissect, is why he'd want to do this play. Just because Shakespeare had her as such a fully fleshed, autonomous, amazing female character in a Shakespeare play comparatively. so it's just interesting to me that Shaw would do this, and like it's like, oh, here's her, this vulnerable young queen, who needs to be schooled. I have nothing more profound to say.
No, that's better than what I had to say.
I'll piggyback off you, Tanisha, because
Good.
I also wrote, this is Shaw setting up Cleopatra. Like this is him doing a lot of prequel work. Like, once again, it's almost like, you're right, Shaw was like, all right, well, Shakespeare got the last bit of Cleopatra, so I'll do the first part of Cleopatra. I'll be a prequelist. I'll pull a George Lucas and do a bunch of prequel stuff. Because, like, you're right, like, just about, like, at the end where, like, Caesar's like, and all the knives that are gonna, like, that, like, it's like, okay, clearly you're doing some coy setup here.
Daggers in Rome, end quote.
Yes, exactly. Like, once again, that's Shaw being very witty with this. But mind you, he I think he also did a good job with Cleopatra in the sense that, like, Shakespeare's Cleopatra is this person who fluctuates between manic, childlike petulance, and at the same time she can be stoic and royal and commander like, and we get to see some of that qualities of this younger Cleopatra. So I do think Shaw did a pretty good job of matching the Cleopatras. Like, as I said, I could see Nikki M. James going through doing both Cleopatras in a night. I really
loved Yana McIntosh's version.
I do too. I do too.
I would watch both.
But you can see it. You can see it. You can see it. But I mean, I think Shaw's also kind of playing into kind of what Shakespeare does with some of these history plays of the games of politics, and he's showing that what happens with these civilizations. It's not decided on by the majority, because clearly the majority doesn't want the Romans there. It's the fact that he's commenting on power plays are done behind closed doors in these small rooms as the rest of the world burns around you. Like, that's what happens.
Literally in this case.
Literally. But that's the thing. Like, Shaw's commenting on, and we're going to get into our next question too, but Shaw's commenting on, and he did this with Napoleon too. Like, Napoleon is plotting his attacks in an inn, secluded from the majority of his troops. Caesar and Cleopatra are plotting their takeover of Egypt from Ptolemy secretly. Like it's all power's all done behind the scenes. That's what power is. And like Shaw, growing up in the time he did, like also understood that like that's how the British royalty worked, right? Like all their power came from being secluded in Buckingham Palace, making power plays with each other, making power plays across Europe, with other royal families. Like that's what's going on, and that's what I think Shaw is highlighting, is this continual game of power. Well, Shaw seems to like to do that a lot.
Well, this might be getting into the next question just a tad, but since you brought that up kind of anyway, like Caesar is not a Queen Victoria. Like we were just talking about how he would put on the armor and get into the battle. Like this is very much not, and he's certainly not even the Napoleon in that sense, who sits at the inn and watches from afar waiting for dispatches. Like
I think you can make Caesar a bit of a Queen Victoria, because once again, Queen Victoria, once the death of Albert happened, she did become kind of like Caesar, a little bit more recluse, not as.
No, but Caesar's not recluse, is what I'm saying.
But he is. People keep saying, Caesar, you're not ambitious. You're sitting back. You're not killing your enemies. You're letting them go.
I don't think that's reclusive. I'm just more talking about how he's not like
passive. Okay, maybe not reclusive, passive. Victoria became a very passive queen, hence why the royal family lost a lot of power in Parliament under Victoria's rule.
I think it could be argued that Julius Caesar is not passive.
No, he's active. Like he
becomes active by the end, but that's it's a journey of the piece.
His strategic politics is, throwing the letters into the Nile, because what do I care about spending years and years and years punishing people who conspired against me when I can turn them into my allies? Like I don't think that's passivity. That's strategy.
Let's also remember that he's coming in the beginning of this play. He's coming to Egypt because they just killed Pompey. So
yes, they killed Pompey. Yep.
He's he was chasing him.
But also, wasn't Pompey a character in Antony and Cleopatra? Speaking of messed up,
there's a lot of Pompeys. It's kind of like a lot of Henrys. There's a lot of Henrys. There's a lot of Henrys. There's a lot of Pompeys and Ptolemies. There's a lot of Ptolemies and Pompeys. They show up a lot
All right,
Egyptian
classic.
history. Yeah, but either way, like for me, I think once again, Shaw is highlighting the fact that a common theme throughout quite a bit of his work is power is done behind closed doors. It's not a unanimous consent. It is a few people making power plays
In the room where it happens.
Exactly. Ed, what are your thoughts?
Oh, sorry. I just wanted to add to that.
Yeah.
I did think he makes little comments on like what kind of a leader you are, like what kind of person you are when you have power. Just because of like the quotes that I wrote down, like a couple of them were referring to, let them lose their lives. They're only soldiers. And Caesar was like, whoa, let me scream for a second. So like, and I was like, oh, can you imagine if like the president of the United States said that? It'll be a terrible leader. So like,
well, I mean, in a modern context,
right? We'll get
they
into
don't
that.
Say it, but
right, we'll get into that next question. But yeah, I just right. I have notes, but anyways, I just think he also made comments on power, but also like on types of people who hold the power, like or what they do with the power. Yeah, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, Ed, final thoughts on this topic?
So, fun fact, and this might actually take away from some of your frustration about, the relationship between Caesar and Cleopatra. Shaw was a celibate. So, maybe.
Really?
Yeah.
Did not know that. That's an interesting. I mean, maybe
voluntary.
Yeah, was it voluntary?
He had a wife. He voluntary. He had a wife. I mean, they were. I remember when I first heard it, I was like, "What?" But
I bet she was like, "Why the hell did I marry this guy?"
And
Are you gonna tell me? Like,
surprise, honey.
We didn't decide this on our wedding day.
Come on, it's our wedding night. No, I have to read Don Quixote. Go away, new wife.
So I guess more to, him kind of
skirting around the sexuality of them. Okay, you know what? That's an interesting thing. I did not know he was celibate. That could be why he kind of avoided that bit of stuff and didn't lean more heavily into it.
But he also wrote Mrs. Warren's Profession, so like
anyway, that's not what I'm getting at with this question, but yeah.
What you getting at there,
I don't know, as Ryan put in his spiel, I don't know what Shaw was getting at with it. But what I took from it and what I look back on is the beginning of that scene, the beginning of that play, with him speaking to the Sphinx, and it's all there. It's all right there. He's not a man. He's not a man. He's not human. When we see him go throughout this play, we see men want to understand him. When they can't comprehend him. And we see Cleopatra, women wanting to be him, wanting to have that power. Whether that's right or wrong, I'm not going to comment on that. But what I'm saying is that he's very symbolic. His whole being is very symbolic. And I see this as, if it's going to connect to Julius Caesar, I'm going to see this as something that is the death of some sort of virtue, whether it be temperance or magnificence or wisdom. Because even in Julius Caesar, it's not about Julius Caesar. It's about what happens in his death.
Yes.
And the approach that Shakespeare takes with it is that there's some divine intervention that can be interpreted, right? Where the gods are pulling the strings. So, and you don't get that in this piece. So I see it as this is Shaw just filling in
this
history of a hero before his death, like the last great Roman, right?
Even if he doesn't go on to massacre a bunch of people at the Rubicon after he leaves, but that's besides the point. We're going to skip that bit of history.
The story of Julius Caesar is what we're talking about.
Symbol of the man.
But even this story, like he drowns Ptolemy, like there's all this.
Well, and I guess more to my point with Ptolemy too is we see, and more to my point as Caesar's not a man, we see another king in this play, and that is Ptolemy,
a literal child king.
And we see that.
Well, that's what he's supposed to be. He wasn't really, but that's what he's supposed to be historically. We
see that people fully understand Ptolemy to the point where they manipulate him. Pythianus,
Him.
Sure, we'll go with that.
His court. Right?
Patata tita, tita tata.
Yeah. Shakespeare. I was going to say Shakespeare. Julius
Shaw.
Caesar. Yeah, Julius Caesar is not concerned with the past. He's concerned with what is said in the future, what happens in the future. And that scene with the burning of Alexandria, there wasn't malevolence that I got when he was speaking about, let the library burn, right? It was there's bigger things than what the past had to offer. It's what the future.
It wasn't his history. That's why he didn't care.
But it was his "let the past die, kill it if you have to" moment.
This is like
Caesar himself was concerned about his ego and his historical reputation. Like that was historically something Caesar was all about. Hence why he claimed himself as emperor.
Well, then that's what the Egyptians were saying to him. Like, if not for libraries, you will be forgotten by history too.
And remember, it's not just solely Egyptian.
Well, there's Greek, there's Roman, there's a whole bunch of history in there. So we know there's a number of lost plays,
a
number of lost comedies.
But it's worth destroying all of that just to take a lighthouse.
Yeah.
Well, I look at something like Nietzsche's Overman or Superman, right? Where it's not somebody that's concerned with, good or evil or what people think are. It's straightforward, it's cold, but it's progressive, it's moving ahead, it's looking into the future for what's best, right?
I think it's a very Western thought process of who cares about where I'm conquering. I'll burn the
why don't we just start moving on to the next question already?
Yes, exactly.
We're going there many times.
It's a Western play written by a Western man. I mean, I'm not I don't know. I'm not trying to compare it to Eastern philosophies, but that's just what
Eastern philosophy. It's just that it's a very Western concept of I'll come in and burn because what do I care about your history? It's not my history.
Yeah, but I'm not saying that you're wrong. I'm not saying that you're wrong, and I'm not saying that it's right. But I'm not comparing it to Eastern. Like that's not what I'm trying to get at with this. But like that's what I got from Caesar himself. Like I don't see most of these people as being people.
Yeah, like in a way, this is the opposite of Amadeus in the sense where that is a play about this great paragon of the top of their field that's deconstructed their humanity and kind of understand their flaws. This is a play about, man, that Caesar sure was a great paragon, eh?
I mean, exactly. Caesar reached the end of his, this was the end of his life. He was, quote unquote, perfect.
He wasn't at the end of his life. He still had a decade to go.
But it is an old Caesar depicted in this play.
Yeah.
Because you have Plummer in the role.
No, read here. Let me lend this to you through the screen.
Well,
he talks so much about his death.
Compared to the rest of his life, yeah. I mean, if we're,
we're at the latter end of his life.
Yes. And he could get a common cold tomorrow and die. This was pre-modern medicine. Just because he's in his 50s or 60s doesn't mean that he thinks, well, I'm obviously going to live to be 80 or 90. That there was no room for that optimism back then.
You even have to look at his comments on people talking about his age. Why is it that he gets so offended? This, person that seems so confident or, without insecurities most of the play. But whenever it comes to his age, what does age mean?
You're attacking his virility. You're attacking. They're calling this lion old when he is clearly someone who is still conquering. He still feels he is in command, but yet you're being like, yeah, you're past your prime. You're old. It's kind of dare I say it, kind of like a very thin-skinned former president that just left, who couldn't stand losing and couldn't take a simple bit of feedback. Instead, he lashed out. If only
someone were to do a Shakespeare in the Park production of Julius Caesar with the wig of sorts.
You could definitely interpret it as you could definitely interpret it as you're poking fun at, I could still do things, right? I'm still limber. I mean, you could definitely take it as that, and they definitely played that as well. But I think the bigger thing, at least what I took away from it, the biggest thing I took away from it was his relationship with death, what that means for him. So that's that's what I see with these two pieces connecting into one another.
Fair.
That's just what
Fair,
I think.
fair.
He did give him a little bit of liberation. He said he'd
Yeah.
rather be killed than die. So I
Yeah.
guess
Once
Because
again,
of-
Shaw doing that
because
great
of-
setup.
right because of GBS, like we're
Right.
like, oh, look at that, you got what you wanted.
Yeah,
Why die?
in an Italian accent.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Sometimes you do that. Also because they had that great line, like
That one,
he's
yeah.
frivolous because he's Italian. What?
Well,
It's
we also have the
it's a quote.
Sicilians.
It's a quote from Homer where he says, let me not then die ingloriously, but let me first do some great thing that people will tell thereafter. Right?
Well,
that's what I
Caesar
see
most
with
certainly
Caesar.
did that.
But if you want to be
Caesar's-
told thereafter, you got to save the libraries.
Facts.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, we know Caesar burned it.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, in that case, since we're talking about burning libraries and history, let's get into the next question, which
We
is
touched on so much of this question already. I don't know how much left there is.
well, we'll get into
I
it.
have notes, Ryan.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nisha's got notes. So first off, Shaw very deliberately wrote this play to comment on the British imperial occupation of Egypt in his time, and then he kind of pulled an Arthur Miller where he kind of tied it back to another occupation of Egypt.
George Bernard Shaw pulled an Arthur Miller. Do you hear that sentence that just came out of your mouth?
I did. Either way, so Miller pulled a Miller pulled a Shaw who was pulling a something else. But basically, it's that thing of it's that great thing that playwrights do where they take a moment in time and they tie it back to a corresponding moment in time. Shaw did that with the British occupation of Egypt, likening it back to the Roman occupation of Egypt centuries earlier. So, does this original political meaning still speak to us today? Does it mean something different to us now, particularly in a 21st century Canadian context? Tanisha, since you got notes, lead the way on this.
I got receipts. No, I'm just kidding. I actually don't have those. I just have a quote that says, what a fool I was then to think that men's lives should be at the mercy of such fools. And I was like, such fools? Like you idiot kings who rule and just do wars? And then I was like, oh, like the people who started I'm saying this not as a historian. Like the Vietnam War, Iraq, basically everything after World War II. What were you doing? Why were you there? You have no business there. It's questionable. You're sending boys off to die, which I don't like it. I just thought that was such a comment on like how people in power can make these choices that govern so many people's lives, and I just are they really necessary? Did you really conquer that area? You know? And that's all I had to say. Like I said, I'm not a historian. There's nothing profound here other than I was like, ooh, seems very similar to what we still live through.
Yeah, I mean, I'll piggyback right off because in my notes I also had Vietnam, Iraq, like all those types, like all these modern wars that we still are like the Romans, where we will go in, we'll blow things up, we'll burn things down, we'll rip things apart because hey, we can do it better. Like we'll leave in puppet leaders who we think we can manipulate. Saddam Hussein. You know,
that worked out so well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Didn't blow up in our faces. Osama bin Laden didn't blow up in our faces at all. You know, it's a thing. We're like throughout history, this keeps happening. Of let's go and let's occupy an area. Like even tying it to the Canadian connection of a bunch of European settlers come over, take over a bunch of First Nation land here, wipe out their history. You know, boot them off the land. Like. And then we're very flippant about it. What do we care that we killed almost an entire population via smallpox?
What do we care that we're building a pipeline on their property?
Right?
Give back their land, but like we don't want to because it's like it's just like too much work.
It's inconvenient.
You know?
Yeah.
It's
exactly.
So,
Exactly.
no, you're totally right. Even connecting it back to like Canada's shady, swept under the rug.
Yeah, I mean, Shaw did a very good job of laying that foundation. Like Christopher Plummer did a great reaction to the burning of Alexandria. His flippant reaction to the burning of the library, which like broke my heart. Like the fact like this place of learning, this place that had accumulated so much history. Like Ryan, I remember Dr. Robert Fothergill talking about the lost plays because of the burning of the library.
We could have had so much more Sophocles, curse you, Caesar.
Oh, we could have had Sophocles. Like we know that like a lot of people, like mathematicians, science, like the fact that like we know that like the steam engine was developed, or like steam steam machines were being developed in this library. They were being experimented on, and yet we lost all that.
So to quote my favorite playwright, Tom Stoppard, on the subject of the burning of the library, you don't suppose, my lady, that all of Archimedes was hiding in the great library of Alexandria. You'd be at a loss for a corkscrew. And that, I think, it is my favorite play for a reason. And it is, Arcadia really does speak to, as much as there is lost, the entire continuum of history is about finding the things that were lost. And, things find a way of resurfacing down the line. We might not have those missing plays of Sophocles, Aeschylus, and Euripides, but, a mathematician will die and their work will be found later, because that's how
unless it gets burned in a library.
No, but that's how math works. You can always refind it.
True, you can. You absolutely can. But it's almost. But it's I watched a great documentary on the Library of Alexandria, and the one thing, like one of these professors, historians said, is how much further in our like more developed would we be had we not had the burning of the library, and then the Catholics took over the library and destroyed the library? Like how much more learning and further developed would we have been if we had like not burned the fact that like people were experimenting with steam-propelled engines.
But, my lady, you must no more grieve the rest than a buckle lost from your first shoe, or your school notebook that'll be gone when you are old. Thank you, Tom Stoppard.
Tom Stoppard, you brilliant man, you. But like for me, like I saw a lot of great connections. Like you could easily do a production of Caesar Cleopatra and dress them in very modern clothes, and still get the point across. I could easily see somebody doing that type of adaptation, because these themes of occupation and destruction of history for the sake of I don't care, it's not my history, are timeless. We have done this throughout history. So yeah.
Yeah.
Ryan, Tom Stopparding. Do you want to continue on?
I'll stop Stopparding. No, kind of, I don't have much more to add, I guess, to this question. One, we've touched on, contemporary politics a lot, even with the previous question. But the big point that I would have brought up that's already been made here is that this, the relationship to imperialism and colonialism is what this play is about, and certainly why Shaw felt the need to write a play about occupation of Egypt during the Suez Canal crisis, and and that whole history of occupation that he was living through. But obviously Canada is built on colonialism, and Stratford Festival, this was 2008. I don't even imagine they were doing land acknowledgements yet at that point.
Most certainly not. I was watching shows there.
Yeah,
that's a fairly recent mandate that all theaters.
Think about
burn their culture too. We stripped it from them, and then we are doing plays on their land about how Westerners do that to other cultures. That's just sorry. Yeah.
No. I mean, just think about it. 2008, Obama, because this came out summer 2008, Obama wasn't even in power yet. No. He the election was in November. This is before Obama. Candidate Obama. This is the historical changes that we've gone through in this past little over a decade. It's hard to believe some of the stuff that we've done.
And just to kind of follow in our proud tradition of jumping ahead to the next question prematurely a bit, look at Man of Destiny, and there's that great monologue, #ThatTier though, which is all about how the British justify their colonial actions, and coming from the perspective of the French emperor who fears it happening to him. But Shaw, he writes about these, occupations from the perspective of the colonizer. And he might try to do justice to how did the Egyptians feel about this, but by focusing on Cleopatra as the central character for that, it doesn't really speak to the profound dangers and history of imperialism, because she is one of the very few Egyptians who actually benefited from the Roman occupation of Egypt. Like,
she was smart enough to figure that out.
But it's so interesting because then he has this short story about a black girl in search of God, which is also like talking about like imperialism, colonialism, and he does like he didn't he could have gone so much further with it. Like, it took a black woman to like make it into a play.
Yeah,
and actually
great play, like
right?
did a great job with it. But yeah,
play. Lisa Cordrington. But you know what I mean? Like, he just didn't even like go there. Like,
yeah, because
and takes the view of the colonizers.
And he was progressive for his time. He was championing a lot of, for their time were the progressive, liberal, left-leaning causes, but limited kind of old curmudgeon-y white man perspective towards all. Like, and yeah, it does take a black female playwright to make that next step in a way that, his blinders sort of prevented him from doing.
Yeah. Ed, I mean, you've been very quiet throughout this entire spiel. So where do you stand on all this?
I think, Shaw's plays are very dry dialectic, but I still think there's stuff to learn from them. I think if there's any relevancy to this play, that it's the fact that we can learn from what good leaders look like, or what, I mean, I just think of that last scene with Rufio, Caesar departing from Rufio, and Rufio not being Caesar. And that's the problem. He's not Caesar. That's what the Egyptians don't like. He's not that person that gave amnesty to everybody when he arrived. He's not that agreeable person. The one
He's ruthless. He just killed Fertatita the scene before.
Exactly. And Rufio just goes to show it's that example of if there's any sort of occupation moment that really stands out for me, it's that moment with Rufio stepping in as the power. Because even before Caesar arrives, aren't they in a bit of a civil war because Ptolemy and Cleopatra are trying to fight over who is
Cleopatra's being kind of kicked out because Ptolemy, her brother, kind of took over, and Cleopatra very smartly looked at the game board and went, Caesar's my backer, I can win this. Hence why she seduced Caesar and got him on her side.
Yeah. And so I think if there's anything to learn from the play in today's age, it's when, like leaders who aspire to be, because I see Rufio as somebody, he calls himself a pupil of Caesar, but he wants to be like Caesar, but he's not. He wants to be that image, that symbol of wisdom, but he's not. And it's, I suppose, in that attempt that things can go wrong.
Well, Rufio doesn't want to stay. Like, Rufio's like, I'd rather go be your shield than rule here. But like, once again, Caesar's like, I'm going to put somebody I trust, a puppet in power that I can still manipulate, even if I'm off conquering the Rubicon. Like, like that, that's a common political move. I'm going to put somebody in who I think I can manipulate.
And to earlier statements, I mean, it's all cyclical, occupation, colonialism, in whatever form it takes on, violence is cyclical. So I still see it as being relevant. I still see it as being relevant in the future to learn from, I see plays as being something, that we have this cathartic experience, and what we take from it and learn from it, from the imagination, what can be. And that's why I really like that moment with Caesar not caring about the burning of Alexandria, because he knows what people can be. Look what he became. So
I do think that, like, that's how he justifies it, but it's, we find out moments later, it's like, I'm distracting them with the fire while I go take the lighthouse. Like, he, I don't know how, genuine he is with that philosophizing.
He embodies it. He's moving forward, right? He's not concerned about the whatever's in that library. He's more concerned about how he's going to seize victory over this attack. And I mean, I just listening to what we were saying before with, what we could have learned, where society would have been that's us, living in the past. But look at where society has gone not having that. Look how much we've accomplished. Not Elon Musk sent his Tesla to Mars. I mean, it's
because he had the money
ridiculous.
to do so. Like a little bit of a vanity project there was.
Yeah, and what is that actually accomplishing for society? Like
for sure,
he also
for
had
sure.
a rocket like blow up.
Yeah,
I mean, for sure. But I mean, what have steam engines also accomplished for society? Other than transportation and the use in war, it's helped contribute to getting people somewhere, and then it's helped in other ways as well. But I'm just remarking upon the fact that we do incredible things today, and we didn't have the Library of Alexandria with us for most of this journey.
Because we burned it and then we had to rebuild it.
But we did have a copy of Caesar's Gallic Wars, like which a lot of kind of political and military leaders do cite as a very influential text for understanding strategy. And just because a very specific catalog has been burnt doesn't mean we completely reject the past.
No, I'm not. And I guess
in particular to look back on him as
I'm not saying
example of that.
And I guess I should clarify. Like, I'm not saying I agree with most of Caesar's actions. Just what I'm getting from the performance itself, how it's relevant, what it's trying to say. Out of all the things you can make it say, this is what I got from it. I mean, I think there's things to learn from history, and yeah, I'm of the same opinion. Where could we have been with the Library of Alexandria? Never have burning and Caesar's arrogance or whatever his steadfastness not getting in the way. But when I look at this piece and think of what it's trying to say, or what I think it might be trying to say, I see it as, okay, well, this is somebody that's not concerned about, he is not concerned about this. He's concerned about moving ahead, going forward. Not saying it's right, but I'm just saying that is an interesting philosophy.
We can leave it at that, I suppose.
We'll leave it at that. We'll leave it at that, because we can get into a much bigger debate, and that is a side tangent that we've already gone down that road of. But Ed, as our Napoleon, I'll let you lead off on this final question. Which is, how does this play compare to Shaw's other works, specifically The Man of Destiny? Do you like this one more than the Man of Destiny, or like where do you stand, like in the ranking of Shaw's work?
I do like this one more than Man of Destiny. Man of Destiny was fun. Playing Napoleon was really fun. In comparison, the writing is a bit more dry in Man of Destiny. It can linger a lot longer than, say, in Caesar and Cleopatra. But I do love the Chauvian tropes with the sort of undermining of English people. I mean, Brittanus is this subservient person to Caesar, and he's called a barbarian, right? And he's this snob. He's, Caesar, we used to paint ourselves in blue, and right? And I just think it's so funny how much ass he kisses to Caesar. And then that last speech, #teardrop, that last speech in Man of Destiny, just talking about the English and how they're conquerors, right? How they rob people. Not saying that English people are bad, but I'm just saying that his approach to his attitude towards the English is really something. So he was thoroughly an Irish person.
He was very Irish.
Very Irish.
Beyond question.
He was very, very Irish. And actually, Ed, I'll piggyback off you. Yeah. I mean, I'll piggyback off you because I have very similar notes where I also like this play more than Man of Destiny, because for me, I find Man of Destiny is a lot more philosophical. There's a lot more philosophizing, which can go on a bit long. And for me, I'm more liking this play because it's kind of like the Scottish play. It's less like a Hamlet. Hamlet's very much more like an MOD. It's a little bit less action, a little bit more sit and ponder. While the Scottish play is like this play, it's fast. These scenes are moving quickly. They're building. or they should be building an intensity throughout this piece. And so yeah, like I liked this play just because that, once again, Game of Thrones, it was very Game of Thronesy. Like there was a lot of power struggle. There was a lot of things I could get behind. I could watch and go, okay, I'm following this a bit more than philosophizing with Napoleon in an inn. Not that I didn't love the good philosophizing in the single tier, that beautiful single tier, hashtag single tier. But like, yeah, I mean, like Shaw's work here is a little bit more faster paced, and I think I like that writing style a little bit more than sitting and pondering. Yeah, that's where I'll go with that. Ryan, I see you kind of chomping at the bit to say something here.
Like, I don't know, I think both plays are good in their own way. I'm not gonna, bother ranking them. I do think, kind of to what I said earlier about my personal relationship with Shaw, like the characters are just vessels for his wit, and that's every Shaw play. Even my favorite Shaw play, which is Arms of the Man, like at least that one is like more farcical and kind of feels like it earns it a little more. But yeah, I just think so much of, Shaw in general is just, I'm very clever and I want you to know it. And sure, I'll make all kinds of political statements with it. But, all of his plays feel very samey to me. And like, it's crazy to say that because they are like, he covers so many different settings and time periods and geographies in his work. But I think comparing them and saying one is better than the other feels like a strange exercise, because if you've read one Shaw play, you've read them all, sort of, in my opinion.
It's that author voice. Sometimes, like, Stephen King is like that for me because he's a brilliant writer, but it's at the author voice, that's all horror, it's all wittiness.
H.P. Lovecraft.
So it's interesting sometimes how an author can be like, you just know it's them. It's like,
Shaw was a recluse, I think.
You read one works and that's it.
Yeah, but like I won't say the same about Shakespeare. Like obviously there's the Shakespearean voice that just, is very kind of socially removed from us, so it feels all unified, and because most of his contemporaries have not been remembered fondly by history. But Shakespeare has so much like just diversity of speech between his characters, and that I think bad example here because at least in this production she was given a bit of a baby voice, but I think when I read this play on the page, Caesar and Cleopatra basically have the same voice. And I think Nikki did a good job of creating her own version of Cleopatra that didn't fall into that trap because she's just very talented. But yeah, all the characters Shaw plays, whenever I read them, it's hard to keep them straight of who's supposed to be the funny one, like
or the more witty one.
Yeah.
That is definitely something I noticed with his plays. Like this one is there's just more like action packed in this one. You know what I mean? Like there's more characters because there's more characters, right? Like there's like 6 people in Man of Destiny, or I don't even know how many. There's a small cast I can count.
4. It's 4 people.
4. I was gonna say I can count it on 1 or maybe 2 hands, but like this cast, it was like all out the wazoo. These Romans, Egyptians, and there's a lot.
Coriolanus made an appearance.
Yeah, like.
Not really, but like the actual place Coriolanus showed up a decade early.
Yeah, but it's hard to like feel like which one's better. In my mind, they're honestly both like like the same. I will say that like I agree that maybe one is more philosophical than the other. Like this one, I was like, okay, it's about the battle of Egypt. You know what I mean? Like, I'm like, this is about some historical people, but like Man of Destiny is like about this historical person and like his thought processes and like how he justifies things. And that's like not all it's about, but like he really gets into it.
It's very dialogue driven.
You've so much. Your one speech so long. Good, so long. And in this, like, there's at least some back and forth.
Well, yeah, like, and the big scenic unit or scenic unit 7 or 4, whichever one it was, that was just the 2 of you and Denisha, like going back and forth for like a good 30 minutes, just the 2 of you. Like
that was the majority of the play.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
is also the majority of this play between Caesar and Cleopatra. Like there's just others added on. So like I kind of agree with Ryan that they're very much like samey, but they're like different. What's
I can
going
agree
on,
to
Shaw?
that. I've read Doctor's Dilemma, and there's not too much variation either. So
Shaw had a very particular voice. It's like an Andrew Lloyd Webber versus a Stephen Sondheim. Sondheim being the Shakespeare, and Lloyd Webber being more of a Shaw, where it's a Lloyd Webber because it has the same musical motif, same lack of character development, while Sondheim has a very broad canon of characters who vary from show to show that are each unique in their own way. So, but both are good in their own way too. Like
Lord Andy, if you're watching, thanks for
Baron.
watching.
He's a Baron.
He's a Baron.
He's a Baron.
Got a
He is Baron Lloyd Webber. Yeah.
Well, if you're
Lloyd Webber.
watching Baron, we apologize, but thanks for watching.
Not to besmirch you. Like you are still very good in your own right, but like compare you to Sondheim, there is a difference. So either way, that's a side point. Either way, I think we are over 2 hours with this. Oh my goodness, we've had some good debates. This has been a fun reunion regarding Mr. Plummer. We love you. Like may you rest in peace. Your work and legacy will live on well into the future. And we thank you. But for now, everybody, let's all quickly give our social media plugs. Ed, I'll let you start. Where can people find and follow you if they want to disagree with you or debate with you on the burning of the library?
I welcome it. Maybe not too much because I'm in my master's degree right now, so I'm a bit busy with papers and whatnot. But you can find me and whatever acting things I'm going to do and post in the future when this whole pandemic ends on Instagram at Edmund_Clark_official. So yeah, check it out. I've also got a new pet during this pandemic, which I always post about. His name's Fafnir. He's a skink, a blue-tongue skink. So if you like reptiles, then check it out.
Tanisha, where can they find and follow you?
I also am on Instagram. You can follow me at Tanisha Sinclair. The spelling of it will be in the video somewhere or down below. Yeah. And that's where I am. I also got a pet during this quarantine.
Really?
Yeah, he is a fluffy standard poodle. He's 9 months old, and his name is Pierre.
Pierre, wow, that's a nice name for a dog.
Pierre's a very cute puppy. He's very
Pierre
cute.
the poodle.
Pierre the poodle.
This is my favorite part. Are you gonna go to Ryan?
Yes. Ryan, give us that classic send-off and tell us what pet you got during quarantine.
I did not get a pet during quarantine. Here, to tide you over, you can look at a picture of my sadly departed rabbit. Very cute, but he's no longer with us. Yeah, irreplaceable. So no, I did not get a quarantine pet. But no, I'm not very active on social media and don't really want Facebook friend requests from strangers. So you can just send all that love to Cup of Hemlock Theatre. And if you do want to debate with anything I said, just put it directly in the comments of this video and I may or may not respond.
Fair. I also did not get a pet during quarantine, but I do have my family cat back home with my parents. Very cute. But in the meantime, you can find and follow me at Mackenzie Horner. All social media platforms. You can follow my podcast Before the Downbeat, where we talk all about musicals. As of this release, we will have just released our episode about Mena La Mancha. So there we go, tying back to what we mentioned earlier about Don Quixote.
One-off random joke I made.
Exactly.
It was planned all along, clearly.
Exactly. Ryan and I spoke about it ahead of time. We talked about tilting at windmills. It's great. But yeah, you can tune into that. Hear us talk all about, once again, idealism versus realism. It's a great time. In the meantime, though, Ed, why don't you tell us very quickly about our sonnet project that we have going on?
Yes. So, thank you. Yes. For people who are out there who are looking to stay creative and who are looking to pursue their craft in theater, acting, or even reciting poetry, even if you're someone who writes poetry, I think this would be a really fun project. Cup of Hemlock is putting on their Shakespeare Sonnet series. It's active right now, and
we'll put the link in the description. Yeah.
Thank you, Ryan. We will put the link in the description. What it is there's 154 Shakespearean sonnets, and we need 154 participants. It's a big project, but it's all to help theater thrive.
Tanisha's already involved.
Yep, exactly. I'll be in it, so you can.
I'm in it. Ryan's in it.
Yeah.
So whatever critiques
154 is a big number that we need to fill. So don't be shy and be, they don't want little old me. Yes, we want you specifically.
You make
don't
it
make
on your
it so
own
there's
time.
like 50 of Ed doing sonnets.
Yeah, exactly.
We want some variety.
We know he'd love it, but we'd rather see some variety.
Yes.
Yeah. So hearing me critique all these actors throughout this play, come and join, and then critique me and have your own review about it.
Yeah, and show him how it's done by doing your own.
Yeah, exactly.
So we'll have the information in the description.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, everybody. Well, thank you all so much for tuning in. We raise a glass to you, Mr. Plummer. May you rest in peace. And we look forward to having everybody come back for another episode, Tanisha, of the Cup Reviews. Thank you, everybody. Have a great week. Stay healthy, stay safe. Bye.